Hi, I'm James Owls. We're swapping Shelves office for mine this week, and I'm here to answer your questions about the Eiffel Grand Prix. Without Friday running, and with just 1 hour on Saturday morning, you're going to miss a huge amount of information. The core systems like cooling, brakes, tyres, all of those we're extrapolating from just a handful of laps. To understand how to get the most out of it on one lap in qualifying, we really only have 1 or 2 chances per car. What that means is that you end up having to do a huge amount of work between P3 and qualifying to try and play catch up, but you probably haven't extracted everything out of the car. So you get a little bit more variability up and down the grid. We certainly didn't long run the soft. We went into the race and the first time that we ran out on high fuel was lap 1. What that meant is we didn't know how far it would go, how it would perform in the cool conditions, whether it would grain on the front right, and how the drivers would drive it. And all of that creates just a little bit more variability now. It's the same up and down the field. Everyone had 1 hour and 3 sets of tyres to work with. We have, for the first time this year, Imola, which will be a 2-day weekend. And really, this was our first taste of it. In many regards, this was harder. Imola, we have 90 minutes to do our practice, and here we had just 60. And furthermore, the conditions here were incredibly challenging for the drivers. Coming into the event, we thought the soft would be a poor tyre. We thought it would struggle with graining, especially on the front axle. That's something we've seen in winter testing quite frequently when you're at these cool track conditions. We long ran the medium in FP3 just to evaluate what that tyre was doing, and it worked very well. But those on soft were also very, very good. We then had a concern. The hard tyre, which would be the tyre you fit if you started on the medium, would be very poor. If the soft's working that well, it's unlikely that that hard tyre will switch on and produce good lap times. As a result of that, once you qualify a medium, you're therefore committed to either taking softs later in the stint or a hard tyre if it's a one-stop, and that could be quite a poor decision. By that point, we had 2 medium tyres on allocation, so we had to really run medium to make a complete qualifying programme, or run a much less and just use the soft tyre. We decided, therefore, to use the medium on Q2 Run 1, a traditional programme for us, normally as we would start on that tyre. It meant minimising the amount of laps we put on it. It would just be 1 time lap. It would also provide a time that would be safe normally to put us through. In the case of Lewis, it definitely was. In the case of Valtteri, it wouldn't have been. And then we'll run again on the soft immediately and make sure we finish the lap. So that becomes our race start tyre. We could see from all of our competitors, based on what tyres they used in FP3, that their intention was to start on soft. Certainly in the case of Verstappen, that was the case. Now, we could have started Lewis on the medium, but he would have been an outlier car to everyone else. All the other cars would have been on soft, and that creates immense amounts of risk. First of all, there's a start offset. That medium tyre will definitely be worse off the line than the soft. And if Lewis was on pole, it could mean that he drops back. If Lewis is second, it means his chances of potentially getting ahead are minimised. So now you're reliant on other situations later in the race. Also, as discussed, we're not quite sure whether it would be a 1-stop or 2-stop. And to take a 1-stop and fit the hard tyre could have been a disaster. So aligning yourself with others, taking a tyre that was working very well in FP3 and a tyre that would allow for both strategies, whether it be a 1-stop or a 2-stop, was the correct decision. And that's why we made sure that we completed the lap on soft. Lewis also was in agreement, and start the race with those soft tyres. You may have heard Lewis complaining about movement within the steering wheel. He had play within the steering column, and the whole steering system was moving backwards and forwards, just a small amount. This is a performance factor. As you're cornering, you're trying to feel the limit of tyres. Having any movement in the steering column whatsoever will cause you to not be sure whether that's the car moving, the tyres moving, or something else. However, it wasn't a safety concern. At no time did we have any concern whatsoever for the system. It's something we noticed on Saturday, but the Parc Fermé regulations state that unless a component is broken, you can't replace it, which is why Lewis had to race with it. And he did a great job considering the amount of difficult conditions we had in that race. We're privileged to have 2 races in our cars that respect each other, but want to race hard. They're fighting for a championship. And we have the ability for them to do that. We've provided them guidelines as to what they can and can't do, and they push it to the absolute limit, as you would imagine, because they're racing drivers. Personally, I was a little bit less comfortable with how much track they used, but they gave each other space both times, both on the entry to turn 1 mid and exit of turn 1 as well. And every time they've raced each other, they've done that. They don't hit each other, they don't take each other off track, and whilst they do that, they're free to race. At the end of the VSC period, Valtteri complained of a lack of power. We could see on the data that the MGUH, the hybrid element of the car that produces electrical energy but also turbo control, wasn't working correctly. We tried a few switch changes with Valtteri which may bring these systems back. So through the steering wheel he can put a default code in that may bring back parts of the hybrid system. It was clear though that it had failed completely even after the switch changes, and as a result we boxed the car and stopped it. The reason why we did that is we felt that the system failure wasn't hardware but actually electronic. And the sooner you stop it, the less damage you're going to do to any of the systems, and the more chance that we will take no penalties with Valtteri as a result. We've got a lot of checks to do, and we'll check the systems in Portimao, but hopefully no further penalties will come as a result of this failure. Towards the end of the race, Lewis had built up a good, comfortable margin over Verstappen, both out there on that medium tyre that they fitted under that initial VSC. The question that you're asking, which is, would we have two-stopped, is the same question that was going through our minds pretty much continuously across that lap region from 35 all the way up to 40. It's difficult to know, as mentioned previously, what those tyres would do. Now, whilst we did long run the medium tyre, we only did 10 laps in FP3 in very different conditions to what you're running in the race. So it was very difficult to know exactly what would happen with those. Now, the degradation was low across all teams. The wear on the first set was reasonable, but suggested that maybe we could just about do a one-stop race. Ultimately, the decision was taken out of our hands. But our view was, until Verstappen stopped, we had no requirement to stop. We're generally better on degradation than they are, and if they'd pulled the trigger for a two-stop, we would have followed suit immediately. If they wanted to stay on the one, we were comfortable doing that as well. It's fair to say we used DAS more than ever this weekend. In free practice, on single lap work, in qualifying, but also during the race. In terms of where we used it in the race, it was on the formation lap, but also when we were behind the safety car, where we had a number of laps circulating on tyres that were just getting colder and colder. I think it's fair to say DAS was a contributing factor to why our restart was so good and really came into its own this weekend. Thank you very much for all of your questions, and we look forward to answering them again after the Portuguese Grand Prix.